Hello everyone, my name is Timur, and this is my 100-day hardcore journey in Minecraft. I knew this moment would come someday, the moment when I would plunge back into this blocky world after many years. I remember playing it long ago, when the game was developed by just one person, when the sandbox genre wasn't as popular. Back then, there were only a couple of hostile mobs, one biome, and the activities were limited to mining and building. But despite that, I spent dozens of hours playing, generating one world after another, constructing massive buildings, and realizing my wildest ideas. Perhaps it was this game that sparked my love for construction. Since my last visit, the game has received tons of new mechanics and content. Bosses appeared, along with vast new biomes and even entire worlds to explore. In-game days last only 20 minutes, and considering I'm essentially a beginner in this game, 100 days will definitely not be enough for a complete playthrough and implementing all my ideas. I won't rush, so the adventure will extend beyond just one video. As usual, before starting, I didn't read any guides or articles and didn't watch videos to avoid spoiling the experience and the thrill of discovery. This time, there was no initial phase of getting used to the mechanics for a couple of hours. I plunged straight into this world. The only exception was that for the first time ever, I installed mods that change lighting and water textures, making the picture much nicer. To really spice things up, I set the difficulty to hardcore, the most challenging mode, where if your character dies, there's no second chance, no respawn. Well, that's enough introduction. Make yourselves comfortable, grab something to drink and eat, and I'll tell you another story, a long one, spanning 100 days. Day 1 I appeared on a tree and waited for the world to load to determine which way to go. By pressing the F3 key, a menu opens, where out of a bunch of information lines, I only need two. My current coordinates and the day counter. By the way, I didn't know about this menu, Danik told me about it, otherwise I was planning to manually record each day lived. The world seemed to have loaded, but I ended up on a rather tall birch tree, so I had to jump between trees a bit to get down. Down below, first thing I one-handed a sheep to get some meat and wool for making a bed, and then I killed a second one with a piece of meat. I chopped down some birchwood, crafted planks from the logs, and made sticks from the planks. I created a crafting table to make some simple tools. By the way, all available recipes are now displayed nearby, complete with schemes. Convenient. Previously, you had to memorize these schemes. I ran forward through the birch grove, destroying any wildlife I encountered along the way. Thanks to this, I soon managed to create a couple of leather armor pieces. Night was gradually approaching. I needed to quickly build a shelter to wait out the night. I dug up some gravel, built a simple hut, placed a bed inside, and went to sleep. I even got an achievement for that. Day 2 in the morning, as soon as I left my shelter, I met a drowned zombie on the shore. In the water, both the character and mobs move very slowly, so I carefully started hitting him with my wooden stick that looked like a sword. After a couple of hits, the zombie died, dropping experience and rotten flesh, and I got another achievement. I celebrated the victory by cooking some raw beef. The hunger bar is important here. Thanks to it, health can be restored, but only if the hunger bar is fully filled. Soon I ran into some jungles. All the trees there were covered with vines, and some even had cocoa beans growing on them. I didn't venture into those jungles. Instead, I created a boat and sailed along the shore. The views here are certainly beautiful. It's just a pity that there's only one boat in the game, and it's wooden, with oars. Soon I arrived at what's called the savannah, where I decided to go ashore. My primary task now is to find some village. It would be a bit easier to survive there. Firstly, because there are houses where you can take shelter and wait out the night, and some even have crafting tables. Secondly, there are villages to trade with. And thirdly, there's some safety because the village is guarded by an iron golem, who has a short conversation with all monsters. I didn't find any villages in these areas, so I sailed further into the open sea. I didn't go out to sea, trying to stick to the shore. I sailed for a long time, but the search didn't lead to anything, so at sunset, I realized that I would spend this night in the boat. In principle, monsters couldn't reach me in it, plus at night, it would be much easier to spot a village since it would be lit up by the light of burning torches. The sun gave way to the moon, and I kept sailing. Soon I noticed some glow and sailed towards it. Most likely it was a lava lake, but still needed to check. My predpolyzenia turned out to be correct, so I quickly got back into the boat and sailed away. After some time, I entered a small river. While sailing, the entire shore was filled with enemies, creepers, spiders, skeletons, zombies, you name it. Soon the river ended, and I had to go ashore again. And then, after running a dozen meters, I noticed lights in the distance. It was a village. Great. As soon as I landed on its shores, a skeleton archer immediately attacked me. I ran into the first house I saw to hide. And then the iron golem silenced the bully with one powerful blow, and then his companion too. Thanks, big guy. I started looking around. The first house was empty, well, except for an archery table. A spider that appeared from somewhere prevented me from inspecting the forge. I introduced him to the golem as well. I ran into the next house, but as it turned out, not quite in time. Its owners were, to put it mildly, a bit busy, so I hurried to leave. I entered the next house, where one of the villagers was already sleeping. He had a chest there, so I decided that I would also live here for a while, placed my bed nearby, and went to sleep. Day 3 in the morning, I examined the chest. Besides food, there were 4 emeralds inside. This is the currency I can use to buy various useful things from the villagers, ranging from resources to tools, weapons, and armor. While I was rummaging through the house, people started gathering inside, probably to see the new resident. I found an archer who could give me an emerald in exchange for 32 sticks. Unfortunately, I'm not ready to trade yet. I continued exploring the village and came to what could be called agricultural lands, where a farmer was busy working. He offered an emerald in exchange for carrots and beets. Well, the village is generally quite nice, and I like its location. There's a desert, jungles, and a savanna nearby. The only thing I didn't like was the terrain. It was too uneven, plus there was a canyon right next to the village. But despite that, I think this is where I'll drop anchor, as they say. I'll just have to fix the landscape with my own hands. I went down into the canyon and tried to mine some glowing ore with a wooden pickaxe, but the block crumbled and nothing dropped out. Most likely, the problem is with the pickaxe. I need a better tool, so I immediately started mining stone to create new tools. It turned out that one of the houses spawned not very luck. The game placed it at the bottom of the canyon, essentially cutting it off from the rest of the village. I went down to check it out, but there was an entrance to a cave near the house, where a couple of creepers and a skeleton archer were already waiting for me. The archer hit me with the first shot, taking away 30% of my health. I ran away but hit a rock, and while trying to dig through it, I got hit by a second arrow. I was left with 1 hit point, but I still managed to escape. The skeleton's bow was not ordinary, it was glowing, which means it had an enchantment. I'll tell you more about that later. On the way back to the village, I looked into a small cave to get some coal. I'll need it to make torches and a furnace to smelt ore. I checked the remaining houses but found nothing except sleeping villagers. I ran to my bed, but it turned out that one of the locals had comfortably taken it over. That's quite audacity, of course. I replaced the wooden tools with stone ones. While crafting, I witnessed a battle between the golem and a drowned zombie, who was armed with a trident. As far as I know, that's quite a powerful opponent that deals a lot of damage. But even so, the golem won again. I chased the villager out of my bed and went to sleep. Day 4 in the morning, I started landscaping the area. I needed to level out the uneven terrain, fill in the pits, and remove some hills. Until nightfall, all I did was dig, trying to get rid of one miserable hill. Yes, rebuilding is not a quick process. Day 5 in the morning, near the central well, I found 3 iron ingots, probably the spot where a golem was defeated, as iron usually remains after their destruction. Besides, the golem that used to guard the village was all cracked, while the current one looks brand new. I noticed an enderman in the village. If you don't look into its eyes, it's harmless, but I deliberately tried to provoke it so the golem could deal with it. It only took 4 hits to take it down. Then I remembered that I hadn't checked the blacksmith's workshop yet. Inside the chest, I found an iron chest plate and leggings, some food, an iron sword, and 6 pieces of obsidian, which I remember is useful for creating a portal. I immediately changed into the armor, started cooking the meat that had been in my pockets all this time, planted some tree saplings near the garden beds to avoid having to go to the forest for wood, and returned to the crafting table to examine the available blueprints. I discovered a shield that can be equipped in the left hand to defend against enemy attacks. That's pretty cool. At night, a zombie dressed in golden armor wandered into the village, but I didn't even have time to examine it because a golem spawned in front of it and took it down in just a couple of hits. Wow, it turns out there can be several golems. I thought there could only be one. Spider webs dropped from the killed spiders, and thanks to them, I was able to create a meadow. Day 6 today I discovered an interesting situation. 2 villagers had either gotten trapped or were intentionally hiding in a pile of hay. Either way, I decided not to disturb them for now. One of the nighttime skeletons managed to find himself in a small lake near my house. Since he was in water, the sun couldn't burn him, allowing him to survive and shoot at me whenever I came into view. I had to take out my bow and engage in a little archery duel. It only took 2 arrows to take him down. I continued working on landscaping, which occupied the entire rest of the day. I even decided to push through without sleep and kept working after nightfall. Interestingly, one of the golems and I managed to set up an ambush together. I acted as bait while he waited for the zombie around the corner. I started removing unnecessary blocks, aiming to make grass grow throughout the entire village. Currently, there's gravel in some places, sand in others, and dirt elsewhere. I want to create a more uniform look. Day 7 today I decided to lay sand paths throughout the village, which required removing the top layer of soil. I also made some adjustments to the pier and cleared away unnecessary wooden blocks. As expected, the renovations took the entire day and part of the night, until suddenly I noticed a whole horde of zombies running towards me. Both large ones and nasty fast little zombies. I started running away, as trying to fight him off would have been suicidal. While escaping, I noticed that the iron golem had fallen in an unequal battle. Hiding in the house wasn't an option either, since zombies could simply break down the door, leaving me with nowhere to run. My only choice was to keep running until the thunderstorm ended and the sun came out. I tried to fight back against the smaller ones but ended up getting hit myself. When I was left with just 1 hit point, I had no choice but to jump off the pier straight into the water, hoping there wouldn't be a drowned villager armed with a trident below. The entire crowd, of course, followed me. I climbed out onto the opposite shore and while eating an apple to restore my health, I turned away for just a second. When I looked back, the entire horde had disappeared. It was pure magic, nothing else. On my way back to the village, I met a villager who had been driven out of his house by the horde. He was slowly but surely swimming towards home. Day 8 The villager I saw yesterday didn't make it to his home. This morning, through my window, I saw him turned into a zombie, probably bitten by another infected villager. He even approached my house door as if blaming me for his fate. His suffering was short-lived. The sun took care of him. I checked the hay pile, and there was quite a crowd gathered there. Apparently, they really enjoy their stay. Well, I felt generous today and decided to release all the prisoners. The rest of the day was spent laying sand paths throughout the village. Day 9 today I decided to use a creeper's explosive abilities to remove an excess piece of land, quite an unconventional but effective method. I also made some adjustments to the blacksmith's porch, giving it a more polished look. My attention then turned to the nearby mountain. Day 10 This morning I explored the canyon near the village and discovered an iron deposit at the bottom. After mining it, I found an entrance to a cave. I ventured inside, placing torches to light the way. As I explored deeper, I collected iron and coal. I also realized that the colorful ore I had mined earlier with a wooden pickaxe was actually copper. Unfortunately, when my pickaxe broke, there was no point in going further. I hadn't brought a spare pickaxe, so I had to return to the village. I put the mined copper and iron into the furnace to smelt. Then I crafted an iron pickaxe. I decided to cut down all the trees near the garden plots. An interesting observation: if you chop down the trunk without touching the leaves and wait, soon sticks, apples, and new tree saplings will start dropping from the remaining tree parts. One tree can produce 4 to 5 saplings, allowing you to grow an entire forest from just one tree. While the old trees were still disappearing, I had already planted new ones. By evening, all the ore had been successfully smelted. I remembered that I had taken a couple of saplings from the birch grove where I first appeared, so I took them out of the chest and planted them near the pier. Day 11 Today I crafted the remaining pieces of iron armor from the smelted ingots and ventured back into the cave. I explored deeper and deeper, discovering various resources along the way. I found lapis lazuli, which not only provides the resource itself but also gives experience points when mined, perfect for enchanting later. After some time, I dug into a massive cave and immediately spotted several diamond deposits. I needed to figure out how to get down there, if only I had a bucket of water with me. Instead, I had to dig towards one of the cave walls. During this process, I had to pause to set up a crafting table and furnace to smelt the ore and create a new iron pickaxe since the old one broke. I also found redstone dust, useful for creating various mechanisms. Eventually, I managed to reach the cave and spotted 8 diamond deposits right away, quite a find. After reaching a relatively flat area, I started exploring but was soon confronted by a zombie, accompanied by a chicken jockey, remembered from the Minecraft movie. I didn't want to fight it, so I tried to escape as usual, but they caught up and cornered me. Thankfully, I had my shield. With one sword strike, I knocked all three of them back, causing them to fall. The threat was over, so I continued exploring, gathering more redstone, gold, and iron. Moving further into the cave was risky. There were a couple of archers ahead, and charging them in melee combat wasn't a good idea, especially with no arrows to fight back. So, I retreated and found a diamond deposit from which I managed to extract 5 diamonds, and a bit further, another one, making it 6 in total. I tried entering the cave through a different route, bypassing the archers, but 3 zombies immediately noticed me. I had to retreat into a narrow passage and face them like a Spartan warrior. Everything was going well until a small zombie appeared and dealt such powerful blows that I was left with only 10% health. At that moment, I thought it was over, but I decided to dash away with all my strength, hoping to escape. It worked, but I couldn't take such risks anymore. Enough adventures for today, it was time to go home. I emerged outside at night, actually during the night of the 12th day. Day 13 today I crafted a bucket and loaded the furnaces with ore for smelting. While waiting for the process to complete, I decided to investigate the floating rock. At its base, I found a massive pit with a mine shaft at the bottom. I descended to explore it and ended up collecting lava in the bucket. Not sure why exactly, but I figured it might come in handy someday. I spent the entire afternoon exploring this mine, but apart from cobwebs and iron ore, there was nothing of interest. When I returned home in the evening, I found a child sleeping in my bed. Day 14 today was dedicated entirely to landscaping, both during the day and night. Day 15 today I decided to expand the farmer's garden. To do this, I first had to cut down all the trees I had planted earlier. Using the logs from these trees, I extended the framework to create one long, continuous garden bed. Day 16 in the morning, I encountered a skeleton that was fully equipped in golden armor. Most likely, this is what allowed it to survive despite the dawn. I had to finish it off myself. The construction of the garden bed continued while I was removing soil to create a sand path. It turned out that there was a cave entrance directly under the garden bed. That's why I heard zombies growling when I ran near the bed. By evening, it was ready, only needing water in the center. I sealed the cave entrance with soil. It was of no use to me there. At night, I planted wheat, obtaining its seeds simply by destroying grass. The garden severely lacked light, so I started experimenting with lanterns. The standard ones looked rather simple, but the experiment was unsuccessful. My lantern turned out to be too bulky, and making it taller didn't seem to increase the light output. So, much as I didn't like the standard lanterns, I had to settle for them. Day 17 to create arrows, I needed feathers, which can be obtained by killing chickens. So I had to spend some time running around and hunting them. In addition to feathers, I also needed sticks and flint, which can only be obtained by mining gravel. I found a gravel deposit on the lakeshore and started mining. From that pile of gravel, I managed to obtain only 11 pieces of flint. As night fell, I brought water to the garden bed and, using the collected feathers and flint, managed to create 52 arrows. Day 18 today I started organizing my settlement by constructing a fence opposite the garden bed. This area will serve as a large enclosure for animals, ensuring they have enough space to move around comfortably. Unfortunately, there was some bad news regarding the child who had previously occupied my bed. He also succumbed to the infection and turned. The night brought another attack from the horde. To quickly deal with him, I took a strategic approach. I ran into the first available house and went to sleep. Day 19 in the morning, all the incoming zombies spontaneously caught fire. They even managed to set the golem ablaze, but within just a couple of moments, all the enemy's Blagopolukno disappeared. On the threshold of one of the houses, I found an ender pearl. I wanted to put it in the chest, but instead of opening the chest, I threw the pearl forward and instantly teleported to its location. Wow, well, what can you do? It came easily, it left easily. Throughout all these days, I've been gradually gathering sand and covering the paths throughout the entire village, so by the evening of this day, all the paths were ready. Day 20 decided to check out the cave located near the hermit's house, the same cave where I had a tough time previously. This time I was better prepared. I had iron armor and enough arrows to fight back. As soon as I approached the entrance, zombies started pouring out like they were coming from a rabbit hole. I started picking them off one by one with my bow. After entering, I placed torches and collected some iron ore and coal. Further inside, I found a steep and rather deep descent downward. Fortunately, there was a waterfall on one of the walls, which I carefully used to descend. The cave turned out to be similar to the one where I found diamonds before. There were diamonds here too. And there were creepers, one of them almost blew me up. After safely reaching the bottom, I started eliminating the threats. I managed to get another diamond. Currently, archer enemies pose the biggest threat to me, so I tried to take him out from a safe distance to avoid getting shot at. After these skirmishes, I only have 5 arrows left, not much. Without arrows, exploring this cave will be problematic. When a small zombie started running towards me, I realized it was time to get out. Day 21. I harvested the first crop of wheat and planted new seeds. The rest of the day was spent gathering wood for the construction of a fence. In the village itself, I planted oak saplings to make it less empty. Another golem has fallen, this time at the hands of a small zombie. Near the pier on the shore, I found an ink sac. Apparently, one of the squids simply washed up on the beach. Day 22. I placed torches on the fence of the animal pen. Near the floating rock, I encountered some horses. They can be ridden, although I need a saddle for that. I fed one of them with apples. I spent time gathering wood until sunset, as the fence for the pen is still not completed. In addition to the pen, I plan to build a fence around the perimeter of the village to reduce the appearance of uninvited guests. Day 23. By lunchtime, I completed the construction of the animal pen. I managed to corral a donkey inside and sealed all the passages with earth to prevent the animals from escaping. In the evening, a trader came to the village. Initially, I thought he was glitched because his llamas were visible, but not him. Looking ahead, I later learned that this was his disguise technique. When danger threatens him, he drinks a potion and becomes invisible for a while. He offered to trade a bucket of milk or water for 2 emeralds, which could then be exchanged for various resources like ice blocks, blue dye, 8 blocks of sand, etc. I didn't need any of these items yet. In the distance, I noticed a new mob, some kind of wizard wearing a hat. But when I approached to take a closer look, it suddenly transformed into a zombie and 2 skeletons. Day 24. The animal pen is completed, but now I need to figure out how to fill it with animals. I tried pushing them with my own body, but accidentally pushed a sheep off a cliff. Unfortunately, it didn't survive the fall. Then I attempted to force a cow in, but that didn't work either. I need to find a lead somewhere. In the evening, I placed torches on the village perimeter fence. Additionally, I discovered that the trader had somehow jumped into the well and couldn't get out. To make matters worse, his llamas were having a spat and kept spitting at each other non-stop. Well, I'm not going to rescue him. Let him live there now. Day 25. I returned to the mine located at the foot of the floating mountain. I hadn't explored it fully before, and decided to gather rails which would be useful later. The mine's tunnels turned out to be highly razvetvany, so I started examining everything systematically. Soon, one of the tunnels led me into a cave with lava rivers. I couldn't find a way down, so I went back and took another tunnel. While mining rails, I accidentally stepped into lava and lost health down to 20%. After some time, I came across a minecart with cargo. Inside, there were torches, watermelon and pumpkin seeds, a golden apple, and rails with a detector. I took everything, including the minecart itself. To be honest, I got tired of running through these tunnels, so I started making my way out. I emerged just in the evening. When I returned to the village, I found that the trader who had been stuck in the well had disappeared. Day 26. In the smithy, I installed a second chest because the first one was already full and I had nowhere to store all the loot I'd gathered. The fence had to be built in several layers to completely prevent any animals from escaping. I also made some improvements to the entrance of the village by slightly widening the path. Day 27. In the morning, I decided to fill in the canyon in the animal pen. After all, it didn't quite fit into the village landscape, and it would be much easier for me to handle the animals when they were all on the same level. This project took up the entire day, but I managed to fill in only half of it. Day 28. To complete the village landscape overhaul, I needed to add some sandstone steps in certain areas. I headed to the desert to gather sandstone, and along the way managed to collect some reeds which I planned to plant by the lake. I also had good luck finding several ripe watermelons, which I promptly stored in my inventory. I spent the whole day mining sandstone and started installing the steps in the evening. Day 29. I planted the collected reeds on what could be called the village beach. Returning to the sandstone quarry, I found the trader who had recently left my village. This time, I decided to eliminate him along with his llamas to obtain leads for filling the animal pen. I ended up getting 2 leads and immediately used them to capture 2 nearby bulls. The first inhabitants of the pen was secured, and in the next pen I found a second donkey. By evening, the village landscape overhaul was completed. All paths were lined with sand, sandstone stairs were installed everywhere, and the village was almost completely surrounded by a fence illuminated by torches. Day 30 I brought 2 pigs into the pen, followed by 2 sheep. I'm specifically gathering 2 individuals of each species to enable future breeding. The horses were the next to join the animal pen, and I spent the entire evening and night mining dirt. The next 3 days were completely spent on filling in the canyon. Day 35 I've created such a spacious and level pen. In the future, I plan to divide it into smaller sections, each housing its own species of animals. I went in search of new livestock and soon found a camel. Of course, it's not small, probably about twice the size of a horse. Looking ahead, I'll be able to ride it once I get a saddle. On my way to the village, I also managed to tame a couple of wolves. I happened to have some bones with me. I gave each wolf 1 bone, after which collars appeared around their necks, and now they'll run alongside me and protect me from enemies. I also brought with me a feathered inhabitant of the jungle. Its coloring was different from that of an ordinary chicken, all because the appearance of animals varies depending on the biome. To bring her to the pen, I didn't need a leash. All I had to do was hold some seeds, after which the chicken followed me on its own. It turned out that I could command the wolves to sit, in which case they wouldn't follow me. I placed torches inside the pen to prevent enemies from spawning there at night. Day 36 I brought in 2 cows. In the pen, I found an egg. I threw it in front of me, and a chicken appeared on the ground. Great, now we can breed chickens too. Well, I think that's everyone gathered. Day 37 in the morning, I set off to explore the desert. I've been sitting in this village for too long. Soon, I discovered an unusual tree with flowers growing on it. I tried to harvest them, and succeeded. The blooming azalea went into my pockets. After some time, I ran up to some ruins. In the middle of them stood a chest, in which I found 2 enchanted golden breastplates, a golden hoe, as well as several pieces of iron, watermelon slices, obsidian, and flint. Apparently, these are portal ruins. I tried to break the glowing block with a pickaxe, but it didn't work. Then I ran back to the village since the sun was slowly setting. Day 38 I didn't know what to do with the harvested azalea, so I put it in the chest for now. I went to the pen to start breeding chickens. The chick that hatched earlier had already grown up, and if you feed 2 adult chickens with seeds, a new chick would soon appear next to them. I continued exploring the desert. Soon, near one of the hills, I noticed some buildings and headed towards them. It turned out to be a new village. In the chest of the local blacksmith shop, I was lucky enough to find a diamond. I decided to take everything from here that I don't have in my village. A couple of flower pots, bookshelves, ceramics, and of course, a cactus. With evening approaching, I settled down to sleep in one of the empty houses. Day 39 in the morning, the looting continued. I took the brewing stand and lectern, then headed home. Upon returning, I began to arrange the loot. After placing the lectern, one of the villagers became a librarian, and now I can buy enchanting books from him for emeralds. In the next house, I set up the brewing stand, and near the entrance, I placed pots and planted cacti in them. The remaining cacti I planted on the beach next to the reeds. At night, I crafted a loom. I don't know what it does, but let it be there. Day 40 I placed a stonecutter in the forge to create various stone items, bricks, fences, stairs, and so on. All this time, I was bothered by the canyon located behind the village, where I had unsuccessfully built a house. It spoiled the overall look of the village, and the nearby river flowed into it rather crookedly, making it look weird, so I needed to fix it. I spent the whole day thinking about what could be done, and by evening, I couldn't come up with anything better than flooding it. At the same time, I would dig a canal so that it would be possible to reach the village by water from the other side. Running around at night is not so scary now. Wolves quickly deal with any threat. The canal was dug, and all that remained was to fill it with water. As it turned out, this was quite simple to do. If you pour 2 buckets of water into a hole, not far from each other, a new water source will form between them, from which you can draw water endlessly. Using this method, the canal was filled by morning. Day 41 with filling the uneven areas turned out to be more difficult. Despite the fact that the canyon was completely covered with water, it was impossible to create a beautiful, even lake. The water just refused to fill this ditch. I fed the wolves with meat, after which a wolf cub appeared, which was already tamed. Cool. I began to experiment. There should be a way to level the water level. I decided to build support lines 1 block below the water level. In theory, then everything should even out. Day 42 I spent the day experimenting with water. The idea with the support lines didn't work. Currents formed between the support lines, so I spent the whole night trying to eliminate them. Day 43 the only solution turned out to be building a solid platform instead of support lines. Then the water level evened out by itself. After that, the platform could be dismantled. It took 2 whole days to fill the entire canyon. Day 45 I decided to burn down the house in the canyon since I wouldn't need it. I was going to flood this area anyway. What a struggle it was with water physics, but what a result. I completely flooded the canyon and got a smooth, beautiful lake. In the evening, I started creating separate enclosures for each type of animal. Chickens were first on the list. I needed as many of them as possible since I couldn't craft arrows without their feathers. I added lighting to the pier because enemies kept spawning there from time to time. I discovered that the camel had somehow escaped from its pen. It turned out that in some places the fence was only 1 block thick. And since the camel is quite large, it had no trouble simply stepping over it. I had to fix this issue to prevent further escapes. Day 46 by this time, there were quite a lot of chickens in the pen. They reproduce quickly, so I kept the chicks, while using the adult chickens for meat and feathers. Day 47 I crafted a clock. This item would be useful only when spending long periods in caves. Otherwise, you can easily determine the time of day just by looking at the sky. I got into the boat and set off to explore the area further. Soon I arrived at another portal wreck. In the chest, I found 2 golden breastplates, pants, boots, and 3 blocks of obsidian. I continued sailing, but the sun began to set, so I decided to wait out the night in the desert village, which was just nearby. I planned to resume exploring in the morning. Day 48 I continued sailing and soon arrived at shores covered with sand of various colors, orange, red, and brown, making it look very beautiful. On top of one of the hills stood another portal ruin. In this chest, I found golden tools, 2 axes and a shovel, along with some other resources. The biome itself was quite beautiful but very deserted. There were no trees or even bushes here. I sailed a bit further along the river and came across a mine entrance. Exploring it was much more pleasant than the one near my village, mostly because it was much brighter inside. Unfortunately, I didn't find anything special, except for a spider spawner right by the water on the other side of the river, which I successfully destroyed. As sunset approached, I headed back home, but near the ruins, I changed course and followed another river. It soon led me to a large glowing tower. Not knowing what it was or who might be waiting there, and considering it was night, I decided not to go ashore yet and sailed a bit further. Suddenly, I noticed the light of torches ahead. It was another village. I ran into the first house I saw and went to bed. Day 49 in the morning, I began exploring the village. Besides the houses, there were another portal ruins here. In the chest, I found 2 pairs of golden pants and golden armor for a horse. Inside the village itself, I found food, some emeralds, and a cartography table, which I naturally took with me. After that, I went to examine the tower. On the slope next to it, I noticed strange grey humanoids armed with crossbows. I didn't wait for them to start shooting at me and began firing my bow first. After dealing with them, I entered the tower itself. On the top floor, there was a chest containing some food, iron ingots, an experience bottle, and several blocks of dark oak wood. There was nothing else valuable in the tower. Despite eliminating all the bandits that came after me, new ones appeared shortly after and also ran to attack me. With nightfall, I climbed back into the boat and sailed home. There was no point in exploring further. My inventory was full anyway. Day 50 I only arrived back at the village in the morning. Immediately upon returning, I harvested the ripe wheat crop, sowed new seeds, and fed the chickens. Day 51 I had been feeding my wolves with meat from time to time, so by now I had an entire pack following me. I decided to take another look at the cave near the failed house. Descending through the waterfall was risky, the height was quite significant, and the wolves could get hurt. So I started digging down instead, continuing until my pickaxe broke, but I didn't manage to dig through to anything. Then I returned to the village and decided to build a new house where I could place the cartography table, since there was no more space in all the other houses. Day 52 in the morning, construction continued. To ensure the building didn't stand out too much, I made it in the same style as the other houses in the village. At night, I returned to the cave and continued digging. I had to break rocks for a long time until I finally reached a type of ore that was impossible to break. This meant I had reached the very bottom, and there was no going deeper. Now I could only move sideways or go back up. Day 53 I started digging forward but, finding nothing, climbed a bit higher and began digging to the side. This time, I got lucky. After some time, I dug into a diamond vein and managed to collect 6 diamonds. As expected, a large cave awaited me further on, similar to those I had visited before, full of enemies but also rich in diamonds. I carefully descended and started mining everything in sight, while my wolf pack took care of all the enemies, so I didn't even need to intervene. While mining another diamond, a creeper dropped down through a hole in the ceiling and nearly blew me up. Fortunately, I managed to shield myself at the last moment. Otherwise, that explosion could have been fatal. I climbed up through the hole to see what else was there and found a zombie spawner a few meters away. Together with the pack, we took out the newly spawned enemies and then placed torches throughout the room. With light, monsters would no longer be able to spawn. There were 2 chests in this room, one with various junk, and the other contained not only junk but also iron horse armor and a saddle. Great, I decided not to destroy the spawner, perhaps planning to use it in the future. Moving further, I entered a cave with a massive lava lake. Here, I lost my first wolf. While exploring, it accidentally stepped into the lava and burned to ashes within seconds. After this incident, I decided it was time to get out. It turned out that I had spent a whole 2 days in this cave. Day 55 while doing household chores, the day passed by. Day 56 at dawn, I went to the cave under the mountain. I had been in this mine several times before, but never fully explored it. One of the passages led me to a new cave, where a wizard in a hat immediately attacked me. He threw a bottle at me, and despite shielding myself, I still got poisoned, which drained almost all my health, leaving only 5%. I had to use a golden apple, which quickly restored all my health and even gave an additional 20% boost. I returned and, together with the pack, finished off that sorcerer. While exploring this cave, I accidentally pushed one of my wolves into the lava, minus the second one. Day 57 finally finished building the new house. It turned out to be tall, 2-story. On the second floor, I even made a small room where I will place a bed. Day 58 in the morning, I set out to search for and mine coal, as the supplies were running low. Of course, it didn't stop at just coal. While running through the forest, I accidentally discovered an area almost completely covered in gravel. I started mining it, but I only had one shovel with me, and it was already half broken. I spent the whole night at that site, fending off monster attacks and mining resources that didn't require a shovel. Day 59 I didn't want to return to base, so I continued exploring the area. On the way, I even encountered an armadillo, probably could get a shell from it, but this time I had no luck. I climbed to the top of one of the hills, from where I could see another portal ruin standing right in the middle of a lake. On the other shore, at the top of a similar hill, there was another village. From here, I could even see the robber's tower I had already been to, so I had a rough idea of where I was. First, I went to inspect the ruins and found another golden axe, a hoe, a helmet, and horse armor. Next, I explored the village and found a smelting furnace, which I didn't have yet, so I took it with me. While running from one house to another, it got dark, so I decided to spend the night here. Day 60 there was nothing in this village except food. But just 100 meters away there was another one. What luck! This turned out to be a village with an agricultural focus. The houses here were large, and next to each one there was a pen where horses, cows, and sheep were grazing, and on the second floor there were smokehouses. There was nothing valuable here either, so I set off towards home. Day 61 over all my previous expeditions, I gathered almost a full stack of gold, so I decided to craft golden tools. I thought it would be like in Valheim, the better the resource, the stronger the tool. How wrong I was. It was finally time to build my own shelter. It's already day 61, and I still don't have a proper home. This has never happened in any of my previous survival experiences. My house will be located not in the village itself, but a bit further away. Remember when I mentioned the idea about the floating rock? Well, my house will be built right on it. Or rather, I'll destroy the floating part, prepare a platform for the house, but design it so that it blends naturally into the surrounding landscape. Ideally, I should end up with a rock on which a large, beautiful castle will stand, with a sharp tower and a magnificent view of the entire village and hundreds of meters around. To realize this idea, I'll need a lot of earth and stone. I decided to set up a small quarry near the construction site for their extraction. And that's when I experienced the full delight of golden tools. It turned out that their durability is enough to mine just about a dozen blocks, after which they break. What a joke, and I filled my entire inventory with them. Well, no point in throwing them away. In short, it took me 3 golden shovels to mine just 2.5 stacks of earth. Day 62 I ran to the village to get normal iron tools. Climbed up to the floating section and started dismantling it. I spent the whole day digging up earth and chiseling stone, and at night I was arranging the platform out of these materials. Day 63 Danik approached me and decided to share a couple of secrets. First of all, enchanting. It can significantly facilitate survival. The thing is that with its help you can improve your tools and armor, adding very useful properties to them. For this, you need a special enchantment table, which is crafted from diamonds and obsidian. You need to place it wisely, since to upgrade this table you will need to place bookshelves around it. Plus, since this table is made of obsidian, it can only be moved with a diamond pickaxe. I thought about putting it in my new house, but there wasn't enough space here. My book supplies were enough to create only 8 bookshelves. That's not enough, I need more. To create books, you need reeds, and they just grow near me on the beach next to. And then I was told the second nuance. Cactus destroys resources. You can literally destroy everything on it. Just throw the unwanted item onto the cactus, after which it will be destroyed. After receiving this information, I removed most of the cacti, leaving just a couple. Day 64 I spent the whole day collecting cow hides. Ideally, I need 15 bookshelves to get the maximum enchantment level on items. Day 65 I had only 1 bookshelf left to create, so I set out on a search at dawn. During my exploration, I wandered into a bamboo forest. Of course, I took a couple of bamboo sticks with me to plant them at the base. It turned out that you can encounter a panda in this forest, so I was in no hurry to leave. I really wanted to see it, although with such dense bamboo thickets, it was unlikely to happen. After some time, I met a parrot on the shore. It turns out that you can tame it by feeding it seeds. After that, it would follow me around like wolves do. But I didn't stop at just one parrot. I went on to tame a second one, this time a red one. I ran a bit further and found a third one, a blue one, sitting near the wreckage of a ship. After successfully taming it, I began to examine the wreckage. Inside, I found 2 chests, one contained lapis lazuli and iron, while the other had carrots, moss, rotten flesh, paper, and 2 enchanted pieces of leather armor. Running home through the jungle at night is a bad idea. You might not notice a creeper and get killed. So I waited until dawn and then ran back to the base. Day 66 on the way back, I managed to collect the missing hides. That's it, now I have enough bookshelves. It turns out you can command parrots to sit on your shoulder. It's pretty cool, there's already too much wildlife swirling around me. So I put the parrots on a clearing next to the wolves. I planted the bamboo I'd found along the canal bank. It grows really fast. I'd just planted it, and some of the saplings were already taller than me. I crafted a diamond pickaxe to move the enchanting table and placed it right in the middle of the clearing near the well. Now it was time to arrange the shelves. They needed to be 1 block away from the table. The enchanting process itself required lapis lazuli and the experience level I'd been building throughout my survival. You place any item in the slot, and 3 enchantment options appear, depending on your level. The more powerful the enchantment, the higher level it requires. The enchantments themselves are random. This time I got efficiency 3. But I wasn't sure what it did. I asked Danik for an explanation. It turns out there are only 5 enchantment levels, with the first being the weakest and the 5th the most powerful, though getting the 5th requires a lot of effort. The enchanting table can only give up to the 4th level, so that's my goal. There are different enchantments, like Luck of the CIV, which gives a chance to get 4 diamonds instead of 1 from a diamond vein, or Silk Touch, which prevents the block structure from changing. For my pickaxe, I got Silk Touch. But that's not all, there can be secondary enchantments as well. I got both durability and efficiency 3 as a bonus. I immediately crafted a diamond shovel, axe, and sword, but they only got luck 2. Then I made a second diamond pickaxe because Danik said every respectable Minecraft player should carry 2 pickaxes. One with maximum luck and another with Silk Touch. So I decided to do the same. It took me 3 tries to get the enchantments I wanted. And even then it was just luck 2. Oh well, it'll do. I enchanted my sword with sharpness 3 to deal more damage. Then I noticed something. If the table is maxed out, it requires level 30 for the 3rd enchantment level, but mine only showed 26. I checked the area around the table and found out that grass and flowers could interfere with the enchantments. Once I removed them, the table started requiring level 30. By the way, your experience level decreases with each enchantment, proportionally to the enchantment level. Wow, without the hints, I would have definitely struggled with all this stuff. But now I have enchanted diamond tools, and I like it. Day 67 I returned to modifying the flying mountain. The digging took so long that I only finished in the morning of day 69. Next, I built separate enclosures for pigs and then for cows. To increase the cow population, you can feed them wheat, while pigs should be given carrots. Day 67 I returned to modifying the flying mountain. The digging took so long that I only finished in the morning of day 69. Next, I built separate enclosures for pigs and then for cows. To increase the cow population, you can feed them wheat, while pigs should be given carrots. Day 70 in the middle of the day, robbers came to my village. I quickly dealt with them and hung the banner they brought with them on a tree near the forge. Day 71 I spent the day integrating the platform for my house into the mountain structure, trying to make it look as natural as possible. Of course, I'm doing it as best as I can, and it seems to be turning out quite well. At night, an underwater zombie dropped a Nautilus shell for me. I'm not sure what it's used for, but it even has a golden inscription on it. It must be something valuable. Day 72 in the morning, I went to the cave to mine diamonds. I wanted to test my new fortune pickaxe. After entering the cave, I found 1 diamond, but the enchantment didn't work. Only 1 diamond this time, so I decided to try again. The second attempt was much more successful. From 3 veins, I got 6 diamonds. There were plenty of enemies in this cave, and I spent most of the time shooting them while mining. Luckily, I had 3 stacks of arrows with me. Soon, the cave led me to an unusual room covered with purple crystals. It turned out to be amethyst. I mined 1 stack each of amethyst blocks and shards. A bit further, I encountered an invisible spider that my wolves couldn't see, and I had to fight it using only the light from its red eyes. Nearby, there was a spider spawner. In the chest next to it, I found another saddle and a music disc. The passage led me to a huge cave with tons of enemies. One of the 4 wolves I brought with me was killed by a skeleton. I started moving forward carefully, looking around and searching for diamonds. I tried to move as carefully as possible to avoid attracting unnecessary attention, and those who noticed me were quickly taken out with my bow. Soon, I lost my second wolf, which was pushed off a ledge by a spider. The only resource I was interested in was diamonds, so I didn't mine anything else. Suddenly, I noticed a blinking mark. I had no idea what it was. But it turned out to be a squid, not a regular one, but a glowing one. I got glowing ink from it, mined some more diamonds, and started climbing up. By this point, I had lost all my wolves. I climbed up a small waterfall and found myself in another huge cave. This time completely flooded. There were diamond veins here too, and I wasn't going to leave them behind. After mining a bit more, I dug upwards a little, and water started pouring in. I swam through it and ended up near my base. Since I hadn't slept for more than 3 days, those flying night creatures started attacking me. I didn't go to bed and just used the golem to destroy them. As a result, I got almost 1.5 stacks of diamonds during this trip, which should be enough for everything. To save space, I crafted blocks from the lazuli and redstone, which I could later break back if needed. By the way, I came out at night on day 75. Day 76. I fed all the animals, mined some coal, and spent the rest of the day and part of the night digging the ground to fix the mountain. Day 77 I installed additional beds in the houses to allow more villagers to spawn and have places to sleep. After lunch, I returned to working on the mountain construction. Day 78 with each feeding, the number of animals in the pens kept increasing. The camel didn't care about any divisions at all. Somehow it ended up in the pig pen, proving that even a two-tier fence was no obstacle for it. I tried planting saplings in a square formation, placing 4 of them close together. The idea was that as they grew, their trunks would merge into one large, thick tree. In theory, this should produce more wood. In the evening, I finished building pens for the sheep and bulls. Horses, donkeys, and the camel will share a common pen. Day 79 I spent half the day sorting the animals into their respective pens. Earlier, I had planted pumpkin seeds on one side of the garden bed. However, not all of them wanted to grow. Apparently, there's a special way to plant them. In the late afternoon, I finished enclosing the back part of the village with a fence. Day 80 the day was spent on creating a mountain and breeding animals. At night, I crafted a fishing rod and decided to try fishing. The thing is, from time to time a cat appears in the village. Taming it provides a very useful bonus. It guards against creepers and night flyers, and it can only be tamed with fish. After 4 attempts, I finally caught my first fish. Day 81 I spent the day fishing. It's important to have a good supply of fish because taming a cat might not succeed on the first try. In the early morning, another zombie dropped a nautilus shell. Day 82 in the morning, I spotted a cat and began to approach it slowly with fish in my hands, being careful not to make any sudden movements that could scare it away. When the cat started coming towards me on its own, I froze in place. Once it got close enough, I fed it 2 fish, and the cat was successfully tamed. Later, in another part of the village, I encountered a second cat, this one black and white. Since I still had some fish left, I decided to tame it as well. This one required 5 fish to be tamed, but now I have 2 cats. Wow, it's amazing to think about all the animals I have now. Cats, wolves, and even a parrot. The rest of the day was spent working on the cliff. Day 83 I finished the rock structure only by lunchtime. It looks pretty good. Almost like a real cliff. Now it was time to think about my own house. I started considering different designs and materials for construction. Initially, I planned to use stone bricks for building, and even made a good supply of them. However, they looked too artificial and didn't blend well with the overall design of the village. That's why I decided that my house would also be made of cobblestone and wood, but its design would be much more complex and beautiful. Day 84 in the morning, I finally started the construction of my house. To be honest, I spent a lot of time thinking about the design. The house had to have a large tower that would be clearly visible from the village, and the house itself needed to be spacious. I went online to look at what other people were building, from medieval castles to modern houses with futuristic designs, and even huge structures replicating real-life buildings. While browsing, I came across a medieval complex that I immediately fell in love with, especially its tower. It was exactly what I wanted, but the entire complex was too large to fit on my cliff. That's when I decided to incorporate only the tower and the adjacent house into my design. This should be more than enough for me, especially since the cliff I built is hollow inside, which means I can create some kind of dungeon or secret rooms there. I decided to start with the tower and began constructing it, adding one level after another. Day 85 while taking breaks from construction, I made sure not to neglect my farm. The workload had grown so much that feeding all the animals and harvesting crops took up the entire day. Day 86 preparing for the construction of the tall tower, I took 2 buckets of water with me for safety. This way I could both quickly move up and down, and potentially save myself if I accidentally fell, by placing water blocks below me just before impact. Since I didn't have a precise blueprint, I had to build the tower by looking at the finished picture as a reference. Day 87 as the tower grew taller and falling became potentially lethal, I had to move with extreme caution. Every single step had to be made while holding down the shift key, which made my character crouch and prevented accidental falls from the blocks. Day 88 the tower was gradually taking shape and no longer looked like a chaotic pile of stones. For one of the upper levels, I needed wood darker than oak. Birch wood was too light, so I tried growing acacia instead, but its wood turned out to be too reddish. Not what I needed. I required either spruce or dark oak wood. While I wasn't sure where to find dark oak, I had already encountered spruce during one of my explorations of the villages. Day 89. To avoid walking, I mounted a camel and put a saddle on it. The mount turned out to be quite fast. Its height allowed it to practically not feel any unevenness, although it created problems when moving through the forest. In this case, the height was only a hindrance because we simply couldn't pass between some of the trees. We had to look for detours. Soon, the desired spruce trees appeared on the horizon. However, a fairly wide river separated us from them. Crossing it was risky. Underwater, you could encounter drowned mobs armed with tridents. If that happened, I would simply die in 2 hits. Therefore, I decided to go around. In the evening, on one of the trees, I noticed a beehive and obtained it using a pickaxe with the Silk Touch enchantment. I don't know why it's needed, but let it be. I only reached the spruce trees at night, collected some saplings, and picked several berry bushes to plant in my garden. After that, I rode back to the village. Day 90. To speed up the growth of the trees, I had to use bone meal. After applying it, the construction work continued and lasted for another 2 days. Day 92. To get more spruce wood, I tried planting the saplings in a square formation. As a result, a very tall tree grew. That's what I call a proper spruce. I planted 3 more nearby using the same method. The next 4 days were spent on constructing the top level, laying the floors, and installing windows. I hadn't slept properly in a long time, so nighttime entities started appearing, but my cat prevented them from attacking me by constantly hissing, which scared the creatures away. The tower was finally completed only by lunchtime on the 98th day. Honestly, I was quite overwhelmed working at such heights. Day 99. The result turned out to be absolutely stunning. The tower looks fantastic, doesn't it? The view from the top, especially over the village, is simply breathtaking, particularly at night when everything looks so magical. Day 100. Although this was supposed to be the end of my survival experience, I decided to make an exception and complete the construction to its logical conclusion. Since I already had a tower but still needed a main house, I spent an additional 12 days building its structure. The result turned out to be absolutely beautiful. While the initial 100-day goal was exceeded, the focus on building and developing the village and base was intentional. With many ideas still left to implement, the next phase promises exciting adventures, including exploring dangerous dimensions and facing powerful enemies. The solid foundation laid during this period will now serve as a base for more challenging endeavors. Be sure to like this video if you enjoyed it, and even if you just want more Minecraft videos, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what other tips and tricks there are that will be useful in the future, and how you think the village can be further improved.
Don't hide, lose yourself in the night, come alive, take flight, turn it up, feel the vibe, let it go, don't hide, lose yourself in the night, come alive, take flight, turn it up, feel the vibe, love is burning bright, we're dancing through the night, everything's alright. Turn it up, feel the vibe, love is burning bright. We're dancing through the night, everything's alright. Turn it up, la la la, na na na, so high. We're dancing, la la la, everything's alright.